this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make our Autumn's Charm Mosaic Cardigan. The yarn that I'm using for this pattern is Maxim Prism, and I will be working up the color Autumn Mist in this tutorial, as well as Maxim Mellow Spun DK, and I'll be working with the color Sand. You'll need 2 hook sizes for this pattern, a 5 and a 4mm crochet hook. So because the mosaic pattern works up tighter due to the single crochet and the chains that we're making, we need to use the larger hook for the mosaic section. And the 4mm hook is used when we're working the half double crochet portion as well as the ribbing. So make sure to do a gauge swatch before starting the pattern for the half double crochet as well as the mosaic pattern, and adjust your hook size accordingly. So we are going to begin with our Mellow Spun DK yarn with our 4mm crochet hook. And I want to mention it's a good idea to follow along with the written pattern. So you can go to the description box below the video, click on the link to either the blog or the PDF. So we'll start out with a slip knot, adding that on our hook, and we're going to chain out a total of 93. Now in the second chain from the hook, we're going to work single crochets, and I'm going to turn and work through those back bumps of the chain. Now, if you struggle with this, just work in the back loop of the chain, but if you can get this turned and just go into those back bumps, it's going to give you a nice edge. You can see we're just working in those back bumps. So we're going to end up with 92 stitches for our foundation or our setup row. So I'm going to work those single crochets all the way across. Okay, so I've worked across 92 stitches. I'm going to measure it because sometimes I do get asked this question. So let's just give this a measure. Now I also want to mention that sometimes working with some of the other colors, you may get a little bit different gauge. I found working with the black yarn, it definitely was a little thicker. My black cardigan definitely worked up bigger than my cardigan done in the sand. So even with the same yarn, you can get some differences between colors. But let's just give this a rough estimate. So it's about 17.5 inches. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and this chain 1 is not going to count as a stitch. It's just going to give us a turning chain. So now in the first stitch, we're going to work a half double crochet. So yarn over, go through the stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through. Now we're going to do a half double crochet V-stitch. So I'm going to refer to it as a V-stitch throughout the pattern. And this is how we're going to be making the stitch. We're going to do a half double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 2 and half double crochet in the same stitch. The reason I'm chaining 2 rather than chaining 1 is the chain 2 really makes it easy to work into and see so we don't miss it. So the chain 2 just keeps it a little bit more noticeable. So this will be our front that will be increasing as we work. And then we're going to work our sleeve section. So this first sleeve section is 22 stitches. So I'm going to work across in half double crochets, 22. Okay, so once you work 22, in the next stitch, we'll do another V, which is a half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet. Now we're going to work across the back section, which will be a total of 42 stitches, continuing with those half double crochets. So I'm going to work across 42. Okay, so once you have 42, in the next stitch, we'll do another V, half double, chain 2, half double, and then we'll work our next sleeve section, which is 22 stitches. So we'll work across 22 and half double crochets. Okay, I've worked 22. Now we'll do another V, so half double, chain 2 and half double. And we'll end with 1 half double in the last stitch. Okay, so now we've separated out all of our sections, including the half double crochets of our V's. We now have 96 stitches and 4 chain 2 spaces. Now, if you follow along with the pattern, I've also in the PDF included a row by row chart that you can follow along with for each section. So this is important because it's really easy to get off track with your stitch count. I also highly suggest counting each section every single time, because even I find I get messed up on this and lose track. So if you count each section, you know you're going to stay on track. So let's get on to row 2. So I'm going to chain 1, and we need to do an increase, and we will be increasing up to row, let me just double check, row 17, we'll be increasing these front panels. But again, follow along with your pattern for the size you're working on so that you stay on track with that. So now what we'll do in the first stitch is work 2 half doubles. Then in the next stitch, which is kind of hard to see, and this is where you can get confused. So this is now the half double crochet of that V stitch from the previous row. You need to work a half double crochet. So now we have 3 stitches. So if you look at the chart for row 2, for our front, we have 3 stitches. Then we need to do a V in the V stitch. So half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet. Then we need to work across our sleeve section, which will now be 22 stitches, because each section will go up by 2. Okay, because we had 22, and then there's a half double crochet here from the V and a half double crochet here from the V. So a total of 24 across this next section. Okay, so again, our final stitch, which is stitch 24, it's sort of a squishy stitch to work into. So you always want to make sure you're getting that last one. So counting is important. And then we're coming to that chain 2 space of the V, and we'll work a V in the V. Chain 2 and half double. Okay, so here's the next stitch you're working into. Now this section is going to be 44 this time, going up 2 stitches. So again, make sure to count and do this for each row so that you don't lose track, because it really is easy to get off track with this pattern. Okay, so I've worked across 43. I'm coming to that last little stitch right here. Put my 44th, half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet, V in the V. And now we'll be working across a total of 24, a V in the V, and then I'll meet you back up at the end again. I know it looks really easy and seems easy not to get off track with those stitch counts, but believe me, it is easier than it looks. It's really easy to get off, and you don't want to do a bunch of work making all of your yoke and then your stitch count be off. Okay, I worked across 24. I'm doing my V and my V. Half double crochet in the next, and then in our last stitch we need to work 2 for our increase. Chain 1 and turn, and now we'll just repeat row 2 until we get to row 17. Now follow along with your pattern because our extra small will stop at row 15. But our small will go to row 18. Our medium is going to go to row 21. So we are going to keep working. I'm working on the medium size, so we're going to keep working this, repeating row 2 up to row 17. And then starting at row 18, the only difference is instead of adding 2 half double crochets in the first stitch, you're only going to add 1. Okay, so you'll just add 1 going across so that the front is only going up by 1 stitch. Okay, so here I worked across 4. So that's how it will work once you get to row 18. So you'll only do 1 in the first stitch and 1 in the last stitch. But rows 3 through to row 17, you can keep adding 2 in the first stitch and 2 in the last stitch. So we just add 2, and this will get the front panel increased out for all of our sizes. I should mention that all of our sizes begin the same. The difference is you'll keep working additional rows to get your yoke bigger for your bigger sizes. So extra small go to row 15, small goes to 18, medium goes to 21, and each of the sizes keep increasing that way. So at row 21, you'll have 37 stitches for your front. You'll have 62 stitches for your sleeve, 82 stitches for your back, 62 stitches for your other sleeve, 37 stitches for your other front, for a total of 288 stitches. So I'm going to continue working my yoke off camera, and then we'll meet back up again. So you're just going, if you need to rewind and watch me work through row 2 again, you're just doing the same thing. So you're working across to your V stitch, adding your V and your V, half double, chain 2, half double. Okay, so now this section, last time it was 24, this time it will be 26. The back, we started at 42, we went to 44, then it will be 46, and it's going to increase in that manner. Okay, so I've been working on my yoke, and I'm working on the medium size. I'm just going to show you what it's looking like. Okay, so it's going to look like this. We've got our front panels increasing, our sleeves and our back. And I've worked a total of 21 rows plus my setup row. And I've already started to work across my next row for separating the body and sleeve. So I've already worked across a total of 38 stitches. Then we're going to be skipping the V-stitch. We're going to skip over the sleeve section. We're going to skip the next V-stitch as well. And then we're going to and we're going to work into the next stitch after the V. And then we're going to work across the back section. So as you can see, this has now separating out your sleeve. So here's your sleeve, and we're working across the body here. Okay, so I've worked across the back 84 stitches. I'm going to skip now the chain or the V-stitch, skipping over the sleeve to the next V-stitch, and then we'll work in that first stitch. Okay, and across the front, which will be another 38 stitches. Chain one and turn. So I now have 160 stitches in total for this size. Now you want to follow along with your pattern for the size you're working on. We do need to have a multiple of 5 plus 2 for the mosaic part of this pattern. So some of the sizes you just want to follow along. You may need to do some increases to get the stitch repeat that we're going to need when we get to the mosaic section. Only need to add an additional 2 stitches, and all I'm going to do will be to evenly space them across. Probably most likely in this area somewhere, I'll just space in the extra 2 stitches that I need. But follow along with the pattern for the size you're working on, because how many extra stitches you need is going to vary based on the size you're working on. So I'm going to keep working away on my rows until I get to the mosaic section, and then I will meet you up to show you how to get into the mosaic pattern. Okay, so I've been working on the body of the cardigan, and I've worked a total of 32 rows, and I'm ending on my wrong side. So we can count here by 2s. The rows are really easy to count because one pops up a little bit more than the other. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. Now you could do any variation of this. You could do the shorter cardigan and start into the mosaic pattern right away. You could make this longer, in between length, really whatever your preference is. Just work as many rows but end on the wrong side. So if we take a look at the mosaic chart, I'm showing A here in half double crochet because we're ending with a half double crochet, but once we jump into the mosaic pattern, we're going to be switching over to single crochet. And we also will need to be going up in hook size. Because the mosaic will come out tighter, we want to use that larger hook to make sure that the stitch is loose enough and doesn't sort of distort the look of the cardigan. I want to make sure I mention as well with your body, make sure that you have added any of the extra stitches you need for your size so that the mosaic pattern works out. Follow along with the pattern for your directions for your size to make sure that those extra stitches get added if you need them before we hop into the mosaic pattern. So I'm going to pull through. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to change over to the larger hook. Oops. And I'm going to work a single crochet in that first stitch. So I'm going to turn and I'm just going to crochet over those tails. Now you want to drop off color A because we'll be picking it up. So let's just set it aside. So we're now on the right side. So we've single crocheted in the first stitch right here. So now when we're reading the mosaic chart, this is going to be, we're going to be working inset, and inset we'll be working across the row and then back across the row. This way we can carry our yarn up the side and we won't have any tails. So for a cardigan, this is a good option so that we don't have any tails to deal with this pattern. So when we work the inset, what we're going to do is we start out with a single crochet and we're doing it in color B, which is our shaded color on this chart. When you come to now to white boxes, they're going to be representing color A, and we do need to chain one, skip one for every box we see. So we have 2 here. We're going to need to chain 2, skip 2. Then you see again this box is shaded. We will be working a single crochet in this stitch. Then we're going to be chaining 4, skipping 4 because we see again the white. And that's how this row is going to work. And then if you look at this row, you're going to see we're going to be doing drop downs. And they're going to be going over the chains. So we actually need, we don't want to be seeing any of the color here. So let's get into it. It's always easier sometimes to watch than me to explain. So we've crocheted across those first tails. We'll leave them. Now we're going to chain 2, skip 2. And I always try to make sure that I'm not doing these chains too tight. So 1, 2, and then we're going to single crochet in the next. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to skip 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a single crochet in the next. And as you can see, we're going to be repeating this. So this is actually the repeat right here. The chain 2, excuse me, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, but then it starts over again. So if you look at the bigger picture, we're chaining 4, skipping 4, right? Because we restart again at this point. So it's a 5-stitch repeat. And it doesn't matter what size your sweater is, you're just going to keep repeating it. So I like the bigger chart. It just gives you a bigger picture of how it repeats across. This is what's repeating. But if you look at this, it sometimes makes more sense to just take this block, chain 4, skip 4, and go across. Okay, so I'm going to continue this. And this is pretty easy to kind of just remember. I'm chaining 4. Skip 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's really however it makes sense to you as you're repeating that across. But if we look at the written directions, it's going to cover this portion. 2, 3, 4. But it's a very simple, easy repeat. So it's a good pattern if you're learning mosaic crochet. So I'm going to continue because of course we have a big long stretch to go across because we're working the fronts and the back all together so that there's no seaming. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end. And if we look at the chart here now, I have done this single crochet right here. So now it's going to, the start and the end, I want to look the same. So we're going to now chain 2 for these 2 boxes, and then we're going to single crochet in that last stitch. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. So now we're going to do the reverse pass back across. So this chart actually is elongated, but I don't show each row like that. So this row comes across and then we actually are coming back one more time across this row. So maybe I'll change the numbers on these that they go 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. So now we're going back across and we're basically just repeating what we did. And this is a little bit easier because you can kind of see, if you don't even want to look at the chart, exactly the pattern. So we're single crocheting in the first. Then we're chaining 2. And then we're going to single crochet. Chain 4. And single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically the same row, we're just coming back across it, just like this. So I'm going to continue working that all the way across. Okay, so I'm coming to the end, so back to this side. So we're going to single crochet this stitch here, chain 2, and then single crochet again. But this is what I'm going to do. I want to crochet over this tail again, so I'm just draping it over my hook, going through the stitch. I'm going to give it a tug, finish my single crochet, and then I'm going to pull through I'm going to chain 1 to get it secure, because then you can pull your tails. We're turning, and I'm going to single crochet over these tails. Whoops, make sure that that's tight on your hook. Okay, so once you get that set up, you're always going to be single crocheting in that first stitch so you can get started without worrying about the chart. So I'm going to move this color over here out of the way. Let's take a look at the chart now. So we've single crocheted. We're working with color A now, which we see over here. And now you come to 2 X's. So when you see the X's, we're going to be working down into 3 rows below. So 1, 2, 3. This is the 3rd row. And we've chained previously. So we're working over those chains. Now, when we have the bigger gaps, we can crochet over them. And if you prefer just to crochet over all of them, you can do that. So if we were going to crochet over them, you would just go down and you're just tacking them into the stitch, working your mosaic double crochet. Okay, so just like that, you're crocheting over them, tacking them together. And maybe I will just do it that way for you, just so that there's no confusion. But if it's only a small gap like this, you can just go into the stitch. So you're pushing those chains to the back and you're working into the stitch like this. Okay, but then you have those chains popping that way. So if you want to keep them secure, you can crochet over them. And definitely we want to do that on the bigger gaps. So now you see we come here and it's a shaded box. So we need to chain 1, skip 1 for the shaded box. So chain 1, skip over, and then we're doing 4 mosaic double crochets. So I'm going to go through the first one like this, and then I could secure the next two. 1, 2, and then just do that one like that. So you're going to find these ones will pop out, be a little more distinguished if you work it that way. The ones that are going over, you may get a little bit more pop through, shows it's a little bit tighter. So really go with your preference on that. I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to make sure I secure. Otherwise, if I left those 2 center ones, you're going to have a big sort of chain piece on this side, which could catch. You may not like that look, so securing them just eliminates that, having that catchable piece. So this is just repeated across. Working mosaic doubles across these 4. Chain 1, skip 1. And it's still, you're not noticing much at this point, but as you can see, we're only going to have a little bit popping through, and we'll be doing mosaic drop downs to make this color pop. It's really as we get, here, this is where we're working. It's really as we get going that you see the pattern. It takes a little bit for the pattern to pop. So now I'm coming up to the end, and I need to chain 1, skip 1 for this shaded box here. Then we're going to have 2 of our mosaic double crochets. So we're dropping down, and then we're going to end with a single crochet in the last stitch. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. So this time our reverse pass is going to be a little bit different because we now have the mosaic double crochets to work into, and we're not doing mosaic double crochets on the wrong side. Instead, we're going to do single crochets for all the mosaic double crochets. So we'll start out with a single crochet. There's 2 X's, so we're going to do 2 single crochets. Then for our shaded box, we're going to chain 1, skip 1. Then we're going to have 4 single crochet. Chain 1, skip 1. And 4 single crochet. So when you're reading the reverse pass coming back based on the chart, all the X's are going to be single crochets this time. Okay, because now if you were to do a mosaic double, you would be coming down here and you wouldn't be sure where to place that stitch. So you're going to do single crochets in the tops of the stitches as normal to get back across. Chain 1, skip 1 every time you come to the shaded box. So I'm going to continue working this reverse pass all the way across. If you chose to tack more of the stitches, you're going to see more stitches across here. And when we work back here, it's going to secure this piece, so it's not going to seem as loose as it currently looks across the back. As you work to the end, I'm going to chain 1, skip 1 for here, and then, oh, actually we'd be over on this end. Then I'm going to single crochet in the next 2, and then I'm going to crochet over tails on this last stitch, pull that, and then we're going to change back, chain 1. We're going to change back here to B. Okay, so we're going to start out with that single crochet in the first stitch, and I'm going to make sure I always crochet over the tails on the first and last. You don't have to keep doing that starting tail. I'm just doing it so it saves me weaving later. Then we have a white box, which is opposite color, so we chain 1, skip 1. Always remember that whatever your color is, make sure that you look at the chart for your color. When you come to an opposite color, we're not crocheting into that, we're chaining and skipping. So chain 1, skip 1. Then I'm going to work a single crochet. So single crochet. Then there's an X here, a mosaic double. So now you're going to have that spot down here to work your mosaic double. Then it's a single crochet in the next, chain 2, skip 2, 1, 2, and then it's a repeat. We're repeating again, so it's single, mosaic double. Move this ball out of the way so I don't keep tangling. Single, chain 2, skip 2, single, and mosaic double. Single, chain 2, skip 2. Okay, you're going to work that all the way across, and now as you can see, this pattern is going to start to pop. You're going to work all the way across. I'm going to meet you up again, and then I'm going to leave you on your own to work through the chart, because it's way too much work to try to get through all of this with you. But you can follow along with the pattern, follow along with your written directions if you prefer that. I like working from the chart, but again, you work through what you prefer. Now, when you get to the striping here, these are just single crochets, and I may make some modifications. This is sort of just my working chart. I may make some modifications to you to make that a little bit clearer. You'll be able to see at this point too if your gauge is matching well with the half double crochet section. Before you get too far, if you feel that you're crocheting too tight, you may want to go up another hook size. Just make sure that it is lining up nice and even with our other work. I also want to mention as I'm going, it's really easy to get off track with stitches in mosaic crochet. So you really need to, I find the chart really well because you can line things up. Like as you see here, we have those 4 mosaic doubles. This single crochet stitch is going in one of them. So if you look at your stitches right here, you know, okay, I'm putting a single crochet in this mosaic double right here. Chain 2. Then I'm skipping these 2 center mosaic doubles and I'm putting a single crochet here. We know we have this space, so we're going to be going down and doing a mosaic double. And then we're back to the same. We've got our 4 mosaic doubles. We're doing a single crochet in the first one. Sorry, where am I? And then we're chaining 2, skipping over. But this is a simpler mosaic pattern, especially if you're new. I have more complicated ones that can really throw people for a loop, but this one is really simple with just a simple repeat. I'm going to keep working across. Okay, I'm coming to the end. We are going to do our single crochet right here, chain 1, skip 1, and then single crochet in the last. So chain 1 and turn, and we're going to be doing that reverse pass. And same as before, when we come to a mosaic double, we're doing a single crochet instead. So we start out with a single crochet. We're looking here, chain 1, skip 1, and then it's 3 single crochet. 1, 2, 3. Chain 2, skip 2. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, skip 2. 1, 2, 3, and just keep repeating that all the way across. Okay, so I'm coming to the end. I'm at that chain 1, skip 1. We single crochet in the last stitch. Again, I'm going to just crochet over those tails. Give them a tug. We're going to change back to A, chain 1, turn, and I like to get that single crochet out of the way and crochet over the tails again. Doing that is just hiding them all up the side. So let's take a look at our next row. We're starting out with that single, then we're doing a mosaic double. You should have that stitch there available. And then we're chaining 3, skipping 3, because we're to the shaded blocks. So 1, 2, 3. And then you should have those 2 stitches right here for the next 2 mosaic doubles. So you should be getting the hang of this by now. It's always good to start out even with a small swatch. Work through it so that you're comfortable before you're working these long rows. It's a lot of work to go back if you have made a mistake. So chain 3. You can see how pretty the color is with its natural color change. Comes out really nice. I love this shade for fall. So I'm going to continue working away. It is going to take a bit of time to work through because we need to go through this entire pattern all the way to finishing up here. You can double these numbers for, you're actually going to be about 62 rows. And we're finishing off with that single crochet in the color A. Then we're going to add a band to finish it off. But I'm going to go ahead, I'll come back and show you how to do that, but I am going to continue working through the pattern on my own, and then we'll meet you back up to show you the next step. Okay, so here is the mosaic section of the cardigan. So I've been working away on it, and you're going to come to finishing. So row 30 here is our last bit of color. And then we're going to go on to 31, and you're going to single crochet all the way across, and you're going to come back with single crochet again. Now I'm working across. After I come back, I want to get back to my right side, and I switched over to the 4mm hook for this, and I'm just working across in single crochet in the smaller hook. And this is going to be my base row for my band. Okay, so you're gonna work through the whole mosaic chart, coming back on your wrong side, and then finish in still our color A. You're going to go across with one more row of single with the smaller hook. So I'm going to finish this off, and then I'm going to show you how to do the ribbed band. So to do our ribbed band, we're still using that smaller hook. We're going to chain out 13. Now you're going to work a single crochet in the second chain from the hook, a single crochet in each chain across. Now you can always alter the width of this band. You could do less chains or more chains. You can easily customize it. But I'm going to go with the same number of chains as my sleeve cuff, just to make it coordinate a little. Okay, so I have 12 stitches. So we're going to skip our first stitch right here, and then we're going to slip stitch into the next two. One thing to always remember with this band going across is we want one row worked per stitch along the bottom. If you get too many rows, you're going to have a wavy band. If you have too few, it's going to pull your cardigan in too tight. So you want to make sure you stick with one row per stitch across. So this row accounts for this stitch. Then we'll slip stitch to the next two. And now we need to work 2 more rows to account for those slip stitches we just did. So we skip the slip stitches, 1, 2, and work single crochets through the back loop only. Once you get to the end, we'll chain 1, turn our work, and work single crochets through the back loop of each stitch. I usually always count my bands because I can easily get off track with my stitch count if I'm not paying attention. So I always count the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I know what happens is this is where some people mess up as well, and they'll slip stitch into the same stitch that's already got. So you can see this has already got a little loop right there. It's already been slip stitched into. You want to go into the next 2. And then we'll work 2 more rows again. Just repeating this process all the way across. And once you get going at it, it is quite therapeutic. It's just working these rows back and forth, joining them with those slip stitches across. So I'm going to continue working that entire band off camera, and once I get this finished, it is a little bit of work because we've got to go all the way across, but once I have that complete, we'll meet back up again. One thing I will want to mention, if you decide you wanted to do your band in the multicolor, I suggest fastening off and joining back on to this side. So even do your first row, I guess, you could do the first row in the multicolor, but just you don't want that slip stitch to look off. So you can always come back over so that you're on the right side. And then when you slip stitch, it will be on the right side of your work. Whereas when we're slip stitching this way, we're doing it to the wrong side. You don't really notice so much here. So I didn't worry about the fastening off, but that is a little tip on some projects. It is important that you get back to that right side so that you have a cleaner join working across. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to do the sleeve. So this is how it's gonna look. We're going to add some of the mosaic pattern, but we're not going to do the entire pattern. You could add more of the mosaic if you want, but I'm just adding a little bit down here to just the end of the sleeve. Find the sleeve opening. And I'm gonna go back to my smaller hook here, and I'm gonna grab another ball of yarn. So put a slip knot on your hook, and what we're going to do is join. So to the right of that underarm piece, you're going to find your V stitch, that chain 2 space. We're gonna slip stitch into it. Now I'm going to leave a bit longer tail. You can leave a long tail so that you can use it to seam any gapping in after the fact. I'm going to leave that a little bit longer. So we're going to slip stitch. Your tail could go to the inside for working with later on. Then you're going to come over, find that other chain 2 space. You're going to slip stitch in there as well. And slip stitch across to your very first stitch, chain 2, and work a half double crochet in the same stitch. You're going to work half double crochets in every stitch around. Follow along with your pattern for the size that you're working on, just to make sure that you do have the correct stitch count. And you'll also want to make sure you follow along with the decreases for the size that you're working on. You will need to make sure that you're decreasing down to a multiple of 5 stitches. And this is where you can alter the pattern as well if you want to narrow out your sleeve a little bit more. Just make sure when you're doing decreases, you get it down to a multiple of 5. So I'm going to continue working half double crochets into every stitch around the sleeve opening. So I worked around 64 stitches. Now I wanted to mention this as well. See how we slip stitched these spaces here? I know I've had some questions about modifying for people that need a larger armhole. If you didn't slip stitch there, you can see this would be much wider. You would have some opportunity to add some extra stitches into the arm. So you could work, for instance, a stitch into the chain space, also a stitch here. You could even add another stitch down here. So you could end up with a much bigger arm than what I've done here with the 64 stitches, but vice versa, we sometimes have women that find the armholes are much too big for their arm. And you could also, I've worked across 64, but maybe you wanted to slip stitch across or seam a little bit more of the stitches to make the arm smaller at this point. But following along with the pattern, you should have 64, but that's just some tips if you wanted to modify to make it either smaller or bigger. Okay, so I've worked 64 stitches. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet to join this up. Now the thing, what you're going to have to do with the sleeve though, we want to keep turning. If we stop turning, we would lose this sort of ridged look. So the sleeve would end up looking different than the rest of the cardigan because we were working back and forth in rows. You're turning, so you want to turn as well when you're working the sleeve, and it's just going to keep that nice texture that we have here. So I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to turn. So now we're on to the wrong side of the work, and I want you to take a look at the stitch here. So here's the chain. There's a little tiny kind of space right here. I don't want you to try to work into that. I want you going into this stitch, but as you come around, you're going to be working into this stitch. If we were going this way, we would normally work into that stitch that we slip stitched into, because I'm not counting the chain 2. So make sure that you get worked into that. But if you count, you're going to stay on track regardless. So it's always a good idea to count to make sure that you're at the correct stitch count. Okay, so I'm going to continue working this around. Okay, so I'm coming around, and here I'm adding my last stitch right here. So I have 64 and a slip stitch to join, chain 2 and turn. Back to the right side. You could start decreasing at this point, but I am going to wait and do 2 more rounds just at this current stitch count before I start into my decreases. So I'm going to do 2 more rounds, and then I'm going to meet you back up on the 5th round. Okay, so I'm just finishing up my round 4, slip stitch to join, chain 2 and turn. I'm going to half double crochet in the first stitch, and then I'm going to do a decrease. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on the hook. Then you're going to go all the way around until you have 3 stitches remaining. Then we'll meet back up and we'll do another decrease. Okay, so now we have our 3 stitches remaining. We're going to yarn over, go through the next stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop. You have 5 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all the loops, and finish with a half double in the last. So now we have reduced to 62 stitches. Find that first half double crochet, slip stitch to join, chain 2, turn, and we're going to do 3 rounds without any decreases now. So every 4th round we're going to do a decrease, and you need to continue decreasing for this size until you have 55 stitches. So follow along with your pattern for the size you're working on as to how many decreases. So how the pattern is going to work, you're going to do a decrease round, 3 rounds without any decreases, and keep repeating that until you get down to the 55 stitch count. Now, because we're reducing it only by 9 stitches, not 10, that final decrease round, you will just need to do 1 decrease. So you'll go from 56 stitches down to 55 stitches. But other than that, you're going to continue. I'm going to run through this one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and work 3 rounds now, just working 1 in every stitch. So at 62 stitches. Okay, so I've worked 34 rounds of my sleeve. Have a total of 55 stitches. So you want to make sure that you do have a multiple of 5 for your sleeve so that it's going to work with the mosaic pattern. So I'm going to be sticking with my smaller hook for this part, and we need to change over to our colored yarn. Pull that through. Chain 1 and turn. And we're going to start out with our single crochet here. I'm just going to get that done to get my tails. We don't want to crochet over that one, just the tail. So let's take a look at the mosaic chart. So we're just doing this section of the chart to finish off our sleeve. So we're going to go ahead and do our stripe pattern, which is pretty straightforward. We're going to be working and we're going to continue working this, turning the rounds like we've been doing. Okay, so we'll go single crochet around for row 22, and then we're going to come back along this row again. We're going to keep the pattern consistent. So once you get all the way around, we're going to slip stitch to join, to chain 1 and turn, and work back around. So now it's a good idea to count so you don't get messed up on your stitch count. I've got 55 stitches. I'm now going to slip stitch into that starting single crochet to join, and I need to change back to the color A, chain 1 and turn, and work again around. So we're going to do this, we're going to go around, turn, come back, and so you need to follow your chart again. So we've got 2 rows in the main color, 2 rows in the color, 2 rows or rounds I should say, the main color. Then you're going to be doing 2 rounds again in the color before we get into our actual mosaic pattern here. So we're going to just go ahead and get these all out of the way. I'm going to do all these rows and then we're going to meet back up. Okay, so now that I'm getting to the mosaic section, now I will have a chart in the pattern that's going to show you this. So what we're going to do is we're going to work, ignore this first stitch here. We are going to work this stitch, this stitch, this stitch, this stitch, this stitch. So these 5 in between my fingers. So let's just fold it, and this is going to be the repeat. Let me just fold this out of the way. Okay, so this is going to be our repeat that we can do around. So we need to work a single crochet in the first, and then we need to chain 3, skip 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet. And then we start again, single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, single crochet. and then we start again. So single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet, 1, 2, 3, skip 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to work this all the way around. So now as you get around, you should be ending with our skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and a single crochet into the last. Okay, and then we'll slip stitch to join. Chain 1. We're going to go back around, so we're going to have a single crochet, 1, 2, 3, single, single, 1, 2, 3, and follow the pattern all the way back around. Okay, so we've ended with my single crochet. I'm going to slip stitch to join. Okay, and then I'm going to change to color B, tighten that up and chain 1, turn back around. Okay, so we're going to chain 1, skip over that first single crochet stitch, and then we're going to be doing our drop downs. So our mosaic double crochets. So there's 1, and we can lock this and by crocheting over them. So we're going going down through the stitch, coming back up around, anchoring those. You can anchor all of them if you want. And then we have here our chain 1. But we're just going to come right back around. So we're going to actually be chaining 2 as we work around, because really as we get into this pattern, we're doing the chain 2. So we're going to chain 2. We're going to get over those single crochets and then work the mosaic doubles. One, 2. Let me move this yarn here so we're not getting tangled. Okay, and then we're locking those chains by going around them. Chain 2, skip over the 2 single crochets. So we're going to work this all the way around. Okay, so we're coming to the end. We'll chain 1, and we're going to need to slip stitch into that first chain 1 to join. Chain 1 and turn, and we need to chain 1 again for that skipping over this first chain. Then we can single crochet into the next 3 doubles. Chain 2, single in the next 3 doubles. Chain 2, and just repeat this around. So basically the pattern we've been working is just now we're having to do it in the round. So we end with a chain 1 and slip stitch in our starting chain to join. Okay, and then we're going to change back to A. Pull that through, make sure to tighten everything up really good. Chain 1, turn back around. And now we're going to be doing our mosaic double, single, chain 1, skip 1, single, mosaic double. And it's usually pretty easy to see again where you're doing these. So we have a stitch here exposed, so we know we need to drop down and do the mosaic double. Okay, and then we're doing a single, chain 1, skip the center double, single, and then we have a mosaic double. And you want to know what? I'm just going to anchor these. Just so we don't have any worry about that being loose in behind there. So single, chain 1, skip the next double, single, and then 2 drop downs. This is a really easy pattern to memorize. Chain 1, skip 1. So really quick and simple to work this around. So I'm going to work this all the way. So I ended with the drop down. We're going to slip stitch to join. Going to chain 1 and turn. And we're going to now work a single in the mosaic doubles and a single in the singles, and chain 1, skip 1 across the chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 1, skip 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and repeat this around. Okay, so once you get around, we're going to slip stitch to join, change back to B. Okay, tighten up your tails, chain 1, and that will secure it. Turn back, and now row B again. So we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then a mosaic double. Then we need to chain 4, mosaic double, chain 4, mosaic double. So let's see here. So chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're doing a mosaic double in our spot that's available right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you don't want it to seem so loose there as well, we can anchor these stitches. Okay, and just go around the chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just repeat this around. Okay, so I'm working all the way around. I'm going to finish with a chain 2, and I'm going to slip stitch into the starting chain to join. Chain 1, turn, then I'm going to chain 2 to skip over, a single crochet in the double, chain 4, single crochet in the double, and we're going to repeat this around. 1, 2, 3, 4, and single crochet. Okay, so I've worked around. We're ending with a chain 2. I'm going to slip stitch to join, and then I need to change color. So pull up our color A, make sure to tighten everything, chain 1 and turn. So now this round, we need to work mosaic doubles in the first 2. And then a single crochet, and then mosaic double. I'm not going to anchor the first one, but I'm going to anchor the next 2. And then another one, so we're doing 4 mosaic doubles and then a single crochet. So we're going to repeat this all the way around. Okay, so I just cut the color because we won't be using that anymore. What we're going to do now, I ended with my 2 mosaic doubles. I'm going to slip stitch the top of the first mosaic double to join. Then I'm going to chain 1, turn, and this round we're going to work a single crochet in every stitch around. And I'm going to do a decrease across my last 2 so I can get to an even number. So we're going to do a decrease across the last 2 stitches. So just go through, pulling up a loop, go through the last stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. So you should have 54 stitches. We'll slip stitch to join, chain 1 and turn. So now we need to do a decrease round by working a single crochet in the first and then a decrease across the next 2. We're going to do this all the way around. So single crochet and then a decrease. So go through, pull up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 3. Okay, so repeat this all the way around. So you'll be ending with a decrease and you should have 36 stitches. Slip stitch to join. And now we're going to do our join as you go cuff. So we're going to chain out 13. We'll single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain across. So now we'll skip the first stitch and we'll slip stitch into the next 2. So this is just showing you the same as what I showed you before when we worked the band. We're just working rows of single crochet in the back loop only and slip stitching it. So we're going to have 36 rows for the 36 stitches. Get to the end, you're going to chain 1, turn and work back down and then continue to slip stitch along the cuff edge. Okay, so we'll slip stitch in the next 2 and I'm going to work that all the way around. Make sure to skip those slip stitches as you work back up, and it's always a good idea to count so that you stay on track. Okay, so once you get all the way around, I've chained 1. Now I want to put my right sides together, so I just like to fold them back. like this, and then we're going to slip stitch our rows. So I'm going to come over, go through first stitch on this side to the first stitch on this side, and we just slip stitch through each stitch along the row. So you should have 12. You get all the way across, you're going to fasten off, and then you can weave in your tails. So you'll need to weave in your colored tail as well. I just closed up some gapping there, which you can always do with your tail, and then you can just weave it one way and then weave back in the opposite direction. I always like to double check that I've hidden it. Sometimes you can accidentally have your tail showing through on the other side. So now we're going to start on edging the side of the cardigan to set it up for our ribbed band. Now what I like to do to make the edge really nice and clean. Now this is also a time where you could block this, or you can wait till the end. Sometimes just to straighten out your mosaic pattern, you want to give it a block, and also the pattern can sometimes curve a little bit, so blocking will help that. And if you've crocheted this section a little too tight, the blocking will also help that as well. Now when working the ribbing, you can do the slip stitch edge, and it's going to look like this. The only issue I have with the slip stitch edge, it makes it really nice and clean along the side, but it also leaves a little bit of a ridge on this side of your work. Now I steamed mine out, but I do notice that you still notice that it pulls it in slightly. So you could also work a single crochet edge rather than the slip stitch if you prefer that. And I'll show you how that looks on the black cardigan. So here is the black cardigan. It still looks fairly neat as you look to the side of it. It's going to flatten it a little bit more, and you don't have that ridge on this side of the cardigan. So I wanted to show you both ways. I do like how you get that clean edge with the slip stitch, but it also does add that little bump to this side. So as you can see, the black cardigan, I also added the buttons, which you could do with the longer cardigan if you wanted as well. But to do the buttonholes, I just evenly marked them out. I started them a little bit low here, but you could definitely add another button to pull it in closer. What I always suggest doing is once you have your edging worked around, just evenly space out buttons with your stitch markers. So place your stitch markers where you would like your buttons. You could even space your 5 buttons out a little farther apart just to get it to come up the side a little bit higher if you wanted to make sure you have a higher button. This gives you flexibility to add as many buttons, especially if you've altered the length or want to add the buttons to the longer cardigan. So now when you're working your buttonhole row, work your ribbing as normal. And when you come to your stitch marker for the buttonhole row, you're going to work 4 single crochet in the back loop. Then you'll chain 2, skip 2, or chain whatever you need and skip whatever you need to fit the button. These are 35mm buttons that I've added. And they go on here. They're a little snug, which is always good because you don't want over time this to stretch out and the buttons not to be secure. So I did chain 2, skip 2, and then I worked another 4 single crochets in the back loop only, keeping the buttonhole even in the center. Your next row, you then will work across and do 2 single crochet in that chain 2 space, working across. So it's really simple to add the buttons. So you can do that if you prefer to add the buttonholes with the buttons to your cardigan. So put a slip knot on your hook. We're going to join down to our front right corner with a slip stitch. Tighten that up, and then we're going to slip stitch across, 1 per stitch. Okay, so I've worked 12. We'll work 1 here, 1 here, working across each row. So as you work across, you're going to have 2 across the color, 2 across our color A, 2 slip stitches across our color B, and which is 1 per row. And we're going to keep working this slip stitch all the way around. And just make sure you keep these nice and loose. If you're struggling to keep the slip stitch loose as you work, you can always go up and do this with the larger hook. Okay, so now when you get to this section, we worked half double crochets. So now we want to work about 3 slip stitches for every 2 rows. Otherwise, it's going to start to tug in a little bit too much. So what you can do is you can judge by your row that kind of goes up and your row that goes down. So one is popping up, one is popping down. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then the next 2 rows, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're just going to continue that now across this section. To the neck, it's just going to be 1 per stitch. Once you get back over to the side, we're going to continue with working 3 for every 2 rows. And as you work back down, once you get to the mosaic section, you'll be back to doing 1 per row. So 2 across your color B, 2 across your color A, etc. And then when you get down here, you'll just do 1 in every stitch again. So I am just going to continue working my slip stitches, and then I'll fasten off and meet you back up again. Okay, so once you get to the end, I'm going to fasten off because I would need to join back onto the other side for the next step. You can weave those tails now if you want, or do them at the end. So we're going to come back over to the right side again. Put a slip knot on your hook. And we're going to single crochet through the back loop only. Of the slip stitch. So by coming back to this side, it's a lot easier to work back through this back loop. Okay, it's going to make your edge a little nicer on the right side. So what we're going to do is go through the back loops of every stitch around. We're going to fasten off again, and we'll be coming back and joining back to the right side to do the join as you go band as well. So doing that slip stitch, it just gives us a really nice edge. Okay, so it's going to cover all of that messiness. Okay, so you can see how nice that looks now along the edge. I've fastened off here. We're going to go back to the right side again. And this just makes it look a little bit better if we do our slip stitches to the right side rather than the wrong side when we're doing the join as you go band. So put a slip knot on your hook. We're going to join back to the right side. And I'm going to chain out 13. And we'll work a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And in each chain across. So you can alter this if you want. You could do 10 stitches, 8 stitches. Could even make it wider. If you are doing a button up for the longer cardigan, you may need to make it a little bit wider to go over the hips. But I won't have to worry about this one buttoning up, so I won't be overlapping the bands. It will give me this length on both sides to give a little bit extra ease. Now we're going to skip the first stitch, slip stitch into the next 2. And then you'll skip the slip stitches working. So now I've already shown you how to work the band, so I'm going to show you how you can make a buttonhole. So if you were to do a 2 stitch gap, you would single crochet in 5, chain 2, skip 2, and then single crochet in 5. So then when you come back down the row, you're just going to add 2 single crochet in your chain 2 space. But if you're not, you're just going to work the band as normal. You're going to work it all the way around the entire collar, working single crochets in the back loop, and you'll be slip stitching to the edge as you go. So this is going to take a while to complete, so I'm just going to finish that off camera, and then I'll meet you up when I have this step finished. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Make sure to check the description box below the video for all the links. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.